Hey guys, so last time on Food with Dottie we made some awesome zucchini bread with fresh zucchinis. That's our new baby rooster. Or he's not really a baby anymore, but that was a baby rooster and now he's crowing for the first time. So he's really excited to be on Food with Dottie. But yes, last week we made zucchini bread. You guys sent me your Instagram photos and your Twitter photos. Some of you added chocolate chips and walnuts and all types of creative stuff. So I'm glad you guys liked the recipe, and I decided this week we would make another thing with some fresh veggies from the garden. We will be using eggplant. We have an overabundance of eggplant because we planted too many. And if you guys are starting your own gardens, I suggest planting eggplant because it grows so easily, just as easily as zucchini and squash. So I had to come up with a bunch of recipes to cook it all. And one of the recipes I just kind of made up, it was an eggplant pasta, and I liked it so much I decided to make it on today's Food with Dottie. Let's go pick some fresh veggies and get started.
Alright, the first thing we're going to do to make our eggplant pasta is pick out our eggplant. This one is wilting a little bit, so I want to make sure and use it before it goes bad. This one's also from the garden, and I'm going to chop it into cubes. I'm just going to dice it, and I've pre-set the oven to 400 degrees because we're going to bake it. A lot of the time, in my opinion, I think the reason people don't like eggplant is because they haven't had it cooked well, and you kind of have to cook it a lot to make it taste really good. It's kind of, if you eat it raw or undercooked, it's almost like eating a raw mushroom, which some people like, but I don't particularly like. So you have to make sure you cook it all the way through. So we're going to bake it at 400 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. Alright, you want to make sure you cut them into semi-small pieces so that they do cook all the way through, and try to cut them similar shapes and sizes, which is going to be hard, but just try your best because then they will cook evenly and at the same time. After we chop up our eggplant, I'm going to drizzle olive oil over the whole thing. And then put a little salt and pepper. So I'm going to throw this in the oven right now, and then we'll check on it in about 25 minutes. Next, I'm going to dice 3 cloves of garlic, 2 to 3 depending on the size of the garlic cloves. And then I'm going to throw that into the pan we will be making the sauce in. Then we can get started on our tomatoes. Okay. I picked a bunch of beautiful tomatoes from the garden. This one's from our friend's garden. But all of these cherry tomatoes and baby Roma tomatoes we're going to use for the sauce. So this big tomato I'm going to cut into really small pieces because I want it to kind of cook down. When I cook it in the pan, this is going to be the base of the sauce. So teeny tiny pieces. Once I cut my big tomato, I'm going to start cutting my cherry tomatoes and my baby Roma tomatoes. And I like to cut it in a way that I think is pretty because I think, although it's important that food tastes good, I think it's also important that it looks good and smells good. So I'm going to cut my cherry tomatoes just in half because I think the seeds are really pretty. So I just slice them right in half. And then I quarter my baby Roma tomatoes because they're a little bit bigger. I put our pan with the garlic cloves on the stove and I put it to medium-high heat. We're going to add a lot of olive oil because that's going to be most of your sauce really. It's just going to be the olive oil and tomatoes. So a lot of olive oil, but you can always add more. Some salt and pepper. And I'm going to add Italian seasoning, but if you have fresh basil and oregano and thyme, you can do that as well. I only have fresh basil, and we're going to use that in a second. But just a little Italian seasoning. And once you can start to really smell the garlic, we're going to add the tomatoes. Right about now, you can start boiling your water for your pasta. I've already done that. I've boiled it and drained it. We're going to be using the little mini bow tie shaped pasta today. That's because that's what we already had, but normally I'd use full-sized bow tie or penne pasta. I think that's better than the spaghetti shape for this type of pasta because it's such a chunky pasta. It's easier to eat in big pieces instead of around the spaghetti. Okay, now we're ready to add our cherry and baby Roma tomatoes. We're going to let that start to sizzle. And once the skin of the tomatoes starts to get a little wrinkly and wilt a little bit, we're going to add our eggplant. Alright, the tomatoes look and smell so good, so it's time to add our eggplant. This is exactly how I feel like it should look if it's done correctly and if it's cooked enough. So we're going to add that to our sauce. We'll probably cook that for a couple minutes before we add our pasta that we already drained. We do have a basil plant, so I'm going to pick a few basil leaves to chop up and toss in the pasta when it's almost done. Alright, now we're going to add our pasta. I really like cooking the pasta into the sauce instead of adding it. You could just do that, but I feel like it really makes the pasta soak up the flavors of the sauce if you cook it together. Okay, lastly we're going to add some freshly chopped basil, and we're just going to cook that until it turns a little bit darker, and then it's ready to serve. I think I'm going to go eat mine on the back porch. I'm going to put a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and it's ready to go. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Food with Dottie. If you want some more eggplant recipes, check out my How to Make Eggplant video on my Dottie Gallagher channel, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.